So couple things. This cost to perception to delivery of value, like that are out of to the increase on that, like how do we solve for that? Because it's one thing where Salesforce came in to the industry and frankly, blank slate introduced their pricing. So it was that watermark started at a very different place than where our watermark started. We're now trying to, as the industry has evolved, create a new watermark in a lot of ways, right? But how do you solve for that? That's an interesting, probably Harvard Business Review sort of class project, right? Of we've got increased complexity, increased value delivery. We've got perception of it probably low in a lot of ways, right? It's not one of these things we pay attention to till it's bad, right? But like, how do we correct that?
So a couple of things. One, I'll say just in terms of the evolution of the market, probably the best thing that's happening or happened to security is that it started coming under the umbrella of IT. Right. Bigger budgets, better perception of value. And so that's a good trend already. But there's a very interesting experiment happening right in front of our eyes right now. If you take a look at some of the new AI-based offerings, the standalone AI offerings that are coming in, and they're layering on top of access control, or they're layering on top of video, and you look at the pricing there, it's $100 a door a month on top of a door that's costing $10 a month. It's $150 a month on top of a camera that's costing $20. We don't know how this experiment's going to turn out, but there are a new crop of people who are coming in, many of them with the Silicon Valley frame of mind, many of them with enterprise software set point, and those are the products that they're introducing right now. We can actually get a real-time experiment as to how these things turn out and whether things like that, AI specifically, help elevate that sense of value.
Yeah, what's interesting on that end is that in some respects, I wonder if what's happening is maybe some of the areas of our industry are valued where they should be. Right. And now we're talking about this sort of the extraction of value, which I think is called value arbitrage in a lot of ways, right? Of like you're moving that value, or is it a layered on approach? So there's new value being created on top of, I don't know, but I think if anything, it's this in whole. Right. There's an undervaluation that's happening that seems to be built off of yesterday's practices, that this sort of like incremental growth belief that we think goes on forever, but there needs to be some sort of fracture that happens to realize the real value of what we're actually delivering.
I think you bring up a really interesting point, Steve, which is kind of the emergence of some of these AI solutions. And I don't put them in a bucket of, well, the value is attributed to AI. I think what I would observe there relative to end users is that either the use cases or the outcomes are more prescriptive and specific with some of these AI solutions and software solutions. So you're able to attribute that outcome, a value to that outcome. And as an integrator, it's the thing that we strive for the most, is to say, if we can't, deliver or achieve an outcome in your environment, the how, separating the what from the how, right? And how do we get there is one thing versus what we're trying to achieve. And I think a lot of the times we see technology that's evolving and changing being compared to the prior version of the technology versus the way that we're delivering outcomes. And I think it's a little clearer with some emerging AI use cases where the value proposition is implicit in the outcome it's delivering versus the underlying technology, and no one's comparing that to a prior technology. So I think if we collectively as an industry can put the focus on the value and the outcome that we're delivering to the end users, and this gets a lot easier, I think, when you get to specific verticals and depth of use cases. But when you do that, I think it's a lot easier to make a case for the value that we bring to the table from a solution delivery perspective.
100% agree. I mean, you sort of stated it when you talked about Salesforce, and then we talked about the maturity of an industry that inherently is risk adverse and is there to prevent risk. And then Steve mentioned now we're part of the IT industry, and the IT industry is always looking for ways to innovate and disrupt. And if you think about the technology focus versus the outcome focus, it's that red ocean. And you talk about Salesforce and you talk about the iPhone, and we spend, $1 gazillion on our mobile devices and our wearables. And those don't necessarily protect us, but they make life easier. And so if we can think about, not to coin a cliche, moving to a blue ocean strategy and how we sell and communicate and unlock value, disruption is actually good for our channel. It's not necessarily good for the end user because then it creates, complexity. But if we can band together as an industry and look at ways to partner better together to create end-to-end solutions, and we don't have to make it all ourselves. We aggregate it as a distributor, but that's what the end user needs, and that's unlocking more value, in my perception. We have to stop leading with a thing. We have to start thinking about what problems are we trying to solve.